Okay, so Jaguar, I've had a couple of days now to digest this new Type 00 concept from Jaguar, and I listened to the presentation of this car in Miami, and I got the feeling that it's sort of two ways this can go, but I think it's going to go in one specific way when we see this in production. I think they made this concept because he said in the production that in the presentation that it's very hard to get attention these days, and they want to be controversial when it comes to the design, and that is definitely something that the marketing department of Jaguar has succeeded with, because everybody in that's sort remotely interested in cars are talking about this concept today. So that is good news for Jaguar. They got the word out that they're creating something new, something unique. But at the same time, I feel like there is almost this war on beauty today, and not just when it comes to the automotive field. It's within pretty much every area of design. And I made this video a while back called Car Design is Dead. I'm going to link that down below, and that explains exactly what I'm talking about. I walk you through a couple of products, a couple of architectures, and show you the what we used to create, not that long ago, but even 100, 200, 300 years ago. These beautiful cathedrals, for example, when it comes to architecture. And now we just have, simple minimalistic skyscrapers without any sort of personality. You can see it in the phone booths from the 50s, maybe the 60s, and then going up to the phone booth of the last ones, which is just a bunch of boxes. Everything is just becoming so minimalistic. It feels like we're removing the personality from products. And specifically when it comes to automotive design, you need to have a personality. You need to have a face that's expressing some sort of feeling. Every time you walk up to a car, you want to have this feeling that this car has a personality based on the face specifically of the car. So what we're going to do in this video is talk about this design. I'm going to let you know what I think about it, and also compare it to sort of not the old design language, but the current design language of Jaguar, and see what happened here. So before we do that, let's have a look at this article from Car and Driver. There's a lot to walk through here, so let's see if we have time to go through all of this. Jaguar Type 00 concept previews a striking new design language. I wouldn't call it striking. It's a controversial new design language. It won't reach production, but the sharp styling and ornate detailing will be reflected in the road-going Jaguar in 2026. And I think he's the CEO in the presentation, said that he never intends for his concepts to just be concepts. He always want to see a huge part of every concept that they make go into production. So I think this is honestly very close to what the production version is going to look like. Hints at the styling of the brand's electric four-door Grand Tourer coming in 2026. Has a long hood, fastback roof line with sharp lines and a repeating strike-through motif. The cabin, this interior, man, I don't know what we're doing with interiors these days. The cabin is influenced by architecture with a stone plinth supporting the seats and structural brass bars that divide the interior. And it looks like the most uncomfortable interior you could ever sit in. While the first of the new armada of Jaguars will be four-door Grand Tourers, the car should follow the brutalist vision presented by the Type 00. Imagine if we got a new modernization of the Jaguar XJR. I mean, as a Grand Tourer four-door. Maybe not a coupe four-door, but a proper electric. Make it, I don't care, make it electric, but just make the design Jaguar. Don't just throw away a century of design DNA because you want to be controversial. I think that's the wrong approach here. So the concept echoes the elongated two-door proportions of Jaguar icons such as the E-Type. They also have that in the presentation, that this is a modernization of the E-Type. Very bold statement there, but the details of the car are a complete departure from the past. Instead of slinky curves, the Type 00 is dominated by hard edges and very monolithic presence. It just feels harsh. And Jaguar to me is the opposite of harsh. It's supposed to be fluid, organic. It's supposed to feel like an organism. When you look at the body lines of a Jaguar, it's not supposed to have these sharp lines that look like as soon as you touch it, you're gonna cut yourself. So the front end is blunt and upright, and the front end is the biggest problem I have with this car. With a rectangular grille shaped in the middle, composed of a series of horizontal elements, which Jaguar calls strike-through, which is something you see all across this car. Simple angular headlights in the front of a singular LED lines give the car an assertive and slightly robotic look. Is robotic something you want to have in the same sentence as Jaguar? I don't think so. That's not something I would want, at least. So the cabin takes a fastback profile with gun slit windows. Just ahead of the massive doors lies a small rectangular brass trim piece carrying a laser-etched Leaper logo. So we still have the Jaguar leaping here. This piece, which Jaguar calls the ingot, extends outwards and houses the rear-facing cameras. We have big 23-inch wheels, and I think these will also make it into production, because he talked about the EV range being 430 miles, will not be affected by the large 23-inch wheels. So probably going into production with big wheels. Good thing. I think that's pretty cool. No rear window, and the concept's fenders curving back to meet the large rectangular panel. The strike-through graphics appears again, this time concealing the taillights, which consist of two thin lines. The roof features a panoramic glass panel with a glazed strike-through finish. The Jaguar font appears in the front grille, the new font, not the old XJ220 font that I love. The front grille trim and small Leaper emblem sits on each fender, and the circular JR badge appears in the center wheels, in the wheel centers. Jaguar says that the more low-key approach was influenced by the worlds of fashion and jewelry. With the bold design language meant to make a car recognizable as a Jaguar instead of the large logos emblazoned on the grille. So they want to not have a bunch of they don't want to have a bunch of logos on the car, and they don't want to have anything with this design to have anything to do with previous Jaguars. So how are you supposed to identify this as a Jaguar is my question. If you don't want to have a bunch of logos, you want it to be inspired by fashion and jewelry, and you also want to have it be completely different from any sort of design we've seen from Jaguar before. The doors rise upwards in a butterfly fashion and reveal a boldly styled cabin that draws upon the architecture and home decor influences. You have 10.5-foot spine down the middle of the interior, 3 brass bars running the length of the cabin. You can see just how uncomfortable this would be to sit in. I mean, a flat seat here looks like a straight line for the interior. We're going to talk more about this in a minute. Line motif reappears on the dash. You can see that here it also stretches into the hood in front of the window. You also have a pair of huge screens so you can hide if you want to, because Jaguar says technology shouldn't dominate the cabin, so the screens can be hidden for a digital detox. And with a stowed, a thin display spanning the base of the windshield shows key information similar to what we've seen in the Lincoln Nautilus, for example. Jaguar's designers told us that the project was originally codenamed Renaissance, prompting the team to draw inspiration from Renaissance-era art and architecture. Nothing bad about that at all, but it still doesn't mean just butcher everything you've done previously. I don't know who's gonna buy this car, though. I mean, old Jaguar buyers to me are they like old traditions. I mean, that is what Jaguar is all about, just traditional values and traditional, don't make too big of changes, because that's not what the Jaguar buyers want. It's a specific group of people. It's not a very big brand. So this is going to be very interesting to see who's actually going to buy this thing. The steering wheel bears an ovioid shape with a brass spoke at the bottom. So instead of drive modes, Jaguar created a unique way to change the experience inside the Type 00, which they call totems. So which live inside the prism case from the exterior behind the powered panel just ahead of the door. So I'm not sure how you switch drive modes here. It's pretty confusing. Like, do you have to step outside and bring one of these totems in, or How does that work? I don't know. You can see it right here though. Each totem alters features such as ambient lighting and screen graphics. It also plays a unique soundscape and releases scents. So Jaguar dubs one color of this Miami pink, and you have the other one being London blue. And there's also, I guess, an Inception silver blue paint meant to reflect Jaguar's home country. That is actually the London blue. This is purely a design concept, but as I said, the boss said that they intend to put a very similar car into production because he does not want to see his concepts just be concepts and not make it into production. So with that said, let's jump into Photoshop here. Have a look at the what I call the current design language from Jaguar with the F-type, and then we have the new one here, and you can see just how confusing this is, because now the organic feeling that we have for the current Jaguars with the smooth lines, it looks like an animal, this thing, because we have this organic lines all over this, and organic lines, beautiful soft surfaces in combination with a couple of sharp lines for the eyeball here, for example, and these lines up in the hood. You have some nostrils up on the hood as well, some heat extractors. We have beautiful, look at the curvatures that we have going all around this car. This is a car that, you know, if you design this car, you would have a lot of fun because you get to move your curves around and connect them with some beautiful radiuses to create the key graphics in the front end, instead of just using a ruler and just do something like this, go all static and create something very strange like we have in the new Type 00 here. I mean, can you imagine being a designer and designing this thing? All you got to do, this would take like 10 minutes to design in Blender, for example. You just start with a cube, carve some, chamfers into this, and call it a day. It has zero personality. Why do we? It feels like this is a car that's not supposed to. You can't offend anybody today, so you don't want to stand out too much. You want to make it so minimalistic and remove everything that is unique about the brand when it comes to DNA, personality, identity, and what you're left with is just this. Just a box that, if we remove this, we have no idea what type of brand this is. What is this thing? It's just a square in the front end with squared headlights and just one simple LED, zero dynamic feeling. And if there's one brand that is dynamic to me, it's going to be Jaguar with all these beautiful lines that we have in the F-Type. Look at the shoulder line here, for example, how beautifully curved and emotional this is. It's one of the best looking coupes on the market today, with this beautiful long curvature into the front end, and then have that be creating this muscle over the rear axle, looking beautiful, and of course the coupe roofline dipping down right here into the rear end. We also have this line at the bottom curving upwards into the bumper. You can see that it has a clear connection to the bumper here. Soft surfaces all around here, going into a couple of key sharp graphics. For example, this line down here at the bottom, creating this shelf to plant the car properly. We have another section down here as well. Beautiful graphics in the front and in the rear, looking very nice, looking very Jaguar. This would be a better modernization of the E-Type than this thing. I mean, look at the backpack that we have on this car. It just slopes down, and this curvature is not a beautiful curvature because it goes almost straight and then dips down into a hunchback design in the rear. And of course, we have this very static line, one simple shoulder line, which would work for maybe a Rolls-Royce to have a shoulder like that. But for a Jaguar, we can't have this. We need to have some sort of curvature going over the rear axle, because that is what Jaguar has been doing for 100 years. So why are we dropping all of these features to just be controversial and get some eyeballs on it? You want to have the eyeballs on you for the right reasons, obviously, specifically if you're selling something, and more so when you're selling an EV for $130,000. You can't just play. This is a big gamble. I mean, they're gambling a lot here to just create something so controversial that a lot of people are going to talk about it, but is it going to melt over to the production version and result in less sales? I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. Look at the F-Type here, how beautiful this is. Very thin, dynamic taillights, meaning that it goes from thinner here into a bit of a thicker LED here, thicker here, thin in the middle. beautifully done, and it also stretches out the width of this car, looking great. We have a proper bumper here, beautiful exhaust pipes inside of these diffusers in the bottom, and curvatures all over this car, exactly like we want to have in a Jag. This is what it's supposed to look like. Soft curvatures, a couple of key sharp lines, exactly like we have here. Now this, I think the taillights, I think they sat up here, so in this top piece of these air-conditioned vents back here, and in the lower piece, you can see just how square everything is. I mean, I'm not going to repeat myself over and over again. You get the point what I'm trying to say here. We have this line dipping down, and this is probably, I mean, if this was any other brand than a Jaguar, it wouldn't be a beautiful looking car. It would still make for a, you know, one of these 2025 EV minimalistic, reduced personality, strip everything away cars, but it would still look like maybe a decent, you know, car of the times. But I would like to see some sort of taillights at least going in here and in the side here. I'm probably going to make a redesign of this, and also have some curvature, introduce some curvatures. Don't make everything so sharp and edgy. It's just not what we want to see in a Jag. It's as simple as that. But if we just added a couple of key features here, maybe reduced this framing and created a round end point here, and create sort of a bumper in the lower section, something like this. But that means that we need to introduce radiuses in a lot more spaces, because we can't just have one curvature here and the rest of the car being all sharp like we have down here, for example. But I don't know. It's as I said, it's a gamble by Jaguar. We're gonna have to see what they come up with in the production version. The interior, though, is probably, if the exterior is a disappointment, I think the interior is probably the biggest disappointment for me, because I don't want us to go into interiors like this, where again you just strip away everything that makes. This is not a car that I want to jump in and, like, if I've been sitting in front of my computer all day and I feel like, man, I really want to go for a drive and just relax, sit in a comfortable interior and just go up the mountains for a quick hour drive or something like that. This is not the interior that I want to jump into. However, this one, the F-Type, here, look at how beautiful this is. We have everything is blacked out, which I like in interiors because it creates a very cozy feel. And again, beautiful curvatures everywhere in this interior. And also personality with a cap for the housing for the gauge cluster. Digital gauge cluster, totally fine. Look at the beautiful integration of the climate control settings here. And a small infotainment screen. I don't want a bigger like this. And look at the integration of the infotainment screen as well here. How beautifully it's laid out inside of this waterfall instead of just having it stick up here. This is one of the better interiors of 2024 in my opinion. And that means that it is in fact a pretty dated interior, and that also tells you that I'm not a fan of most of new interiors that we see out today, because they all look very product designy and doesn't have this homey feel that I'm looking for in cars today. So brass bars, metal, they also had some stone piece here, I think. And yeah, it just does not look like an interior that I would want to spend a lot of time in. I want to hear your opinions on this car. Do you think this gamble is going to pay off for Jaguar? That is mostly what I want to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comments below.